You go to apply for a job. You walk into the place of employment and you take an application, you fill it out. While you fill out the application, the question is, have you ever gone to prison? And you respond on the application, no. When you get into the interview process and the employer looks at it and he does your background, he tells you that he cannot hire you because you are a convicted, that you lied on your application. And you're like, what do you mean I lied on my application? The employer says, it specifically asked you, have you ever gone to prison? And you put no. But in fact, you are a convicted felon. You lied on your application. And you respond, I did not lie on my application. I didn't go to prison. I was sent to prison. Have you ever felt this before? Have you ever gone through this before? Or maybe you didn't get the job because you might have had a drug addiction problem, or you might have had an arrest before, or maybe you have a poor employment history. So come on into the gentleman's forum. Let's discuss this. We're going to dive into how we can be productive in today's society. Welcome to the gentleman's forum.
Not every conversation needs to be loud. Not every disagreement needs to become hostile. And not every man is interested in spectacle. The Society of Ordinary Gentlemen exists for those who believe that courtesy still matters, that restraint is a strength, and that how one conducts himself, especially when it is inconvenient, is a measure of character. This is not a platform for self-promotion. It is a place for thoughtful discussion, mutual respect, and personal accountability. The Society of Ordinary Gentlemen is an online community with the mission of cultivating modern gentlemen by teaching skills, habits, and mindsets that elevate personal style, communication, health, and lifestyle through community, courses, and mentorship. Membership is open to adults willing to uphold these standards.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Gentleman's Forum, hosted by the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen. My name is Anthony Buntyn and I'm the Managing Director for the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen. I have a question for you that I want to ask and want you to just think about this for a minute. I'll give you a scenario. A man goes to apply for a job and he walks into a business and he's filling out an application and they go through the whole scenario on the application and for backgrounds and things like this. And the gentleman fills out the application and says, have you ever been to prison? And he puts no. So he turned the application in and they go through the background process. And when he calls to find out if he got the job, the person doing the interview and says, no, we did not give you the job because you lied on your application. The man looks confused. He goes, what do you mean I lied on my application? And the employer goes, the question was, have you ever been to prison or have you ever gone to prison? And he goes, yeah, you put down that you never have, but in fact, you are a convicted felon. So you did go to prison. He said, no, I didn't go to prison. I was taken to prison. Now, this might seem funny to some people, but this is something that I want to discuss today because there are some men that have served time and are labeled as a convicted felon. But it's more than just somebody that has been incarcerated. This is also applies to somebody that, let's say you have a bad work history. For example, you might have been fired for stealing on the job. Or point being is that many a times, especially in our younger lives, we've made mistakes and we've done things that are wrong. Now, how do you get back into society? How do you correct the stereotype and the stigma that comes along with this? So today we're going to discuss this, and I want to welcome you to the Gentleman's Forum. This is a forum that is designed by the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen I wanted to discuss. So let's get into this. First thing is we have to come to understanding that we all have some type of thing in our past, in our history that we're not proud of. Whether you went to jail, whether you went to prison, whether you've been fired several times. And many of us have gone through things and, you might have been labeled as a troublemaker or a non-productive person, and unfortunately, you might be labeled as a felon. The question is how do you recover from something like this? And the answer is you can recover. There are things that you can do as a gentleman that can help you change the mindset of how people perceive you. But what I want to talk to you today about, especially those who might have a shady past, a criminal background, if you will, how do you get past this? How do you change the mindset of how people look? And unfortunately, we're in a society today where you are judged. Yes, people shouldn't judge other people, but let's be real. You are going to get judged. And more so if you have a past that can come back to haunt you. Like I said, whether it's you've served time in prison or you've had a background that involves some arrests, whether the DUI, a theft, drugs, and even somebody that might have had a drug problem, but people look at this, especially when it comes to employment, and a lot of people are being disheartened by the fact that they can't get jobs. And they want to say, well, it's because of my background. Yes, it can be, but that's not the whole thing. And that's not the whole picture. So today on the Gentleman's Forum, we want to dive into how you can change the way people perceive you. How can you gain respect in today's society? So what I want you to understand is, especially, and I don't want to get into a thing where it becomes a racial thing, but people will judge you based on your race, based on your culture, based on your religion, based on your ethnicity. There are so many things that people base things on. Let's say for myself, if I was a convicted felon and I'm trying to get a job, well, number one, unfortunately, there might be people that look at me that I have two strikes against me. Number one, I'm a black male. Number two, I'm a convicted felon. So some people, unfortunately, automatically right off the bat are going to see that on your application that you are a convicted felon. They've already, in their minds, put in their mindset, this person can't be trusted. Doesn't matter what your charge is. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. All they see is that you are a convicted felon, or even let's say you were arrested for a drug problem, or you had a drug addiction, or something like this. And so, what I want you to understand is that number one, if you want people to respect you, you want people to see you in a different light, then you have to let people see you in a different way. And how do we do this? Well, number one, and I'll give you an example. This is a perfect example. A couple months ago, I was at my office downtown Memphis, and I was standing outside, and I was getting some fresh air, and I was smoking my pipe. And there was a young black man walking down the street, and he noticed I had on a suit, and he stopped, and he was telling me how nice my suit looked and everything. And we got into a conversation, and he started explaining to me that he was looking for a job, and he asked me if we were hiring, and I was like, well, unfortunately, we're not hiring at the time. And he's like, well, I was trying to find a job, and he said I'm having a hard time because I'm a convicted felon. And he's like, and so whenever I try to get a job, I'm having a hard time get a job. And so I took the opportunity and I started discussing and speaking into him and giving him some positive reassurance and some positive things. And one thing I told him, I said, first of all, I said, unfortunately, people are going to look at you and they're going to see a black male that is a convicted felon. And I said, so what you want to do is you want to change that mindset. You want to change how people perceive you before they even look at your application. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you're going to apply for a job, you have to change the way that people look at you. You have to change your appearance. Don't go into a job with torn jeans, a shirt with, logos on it. And what I mean by logos, I'm talking about like, some t-shirts that have like pictures and stuff on them and things like this. I said, you have to change the way that people are going to perceive you. And I said, because if you walk in, and that day that I was talking to him, he actually had on some jeans that were kind of torn a little bit. And when I mean torn, I'm not talking about that they were like he was homeless, but they were just, they were the fashion type jeans where they were, I guess they call them stretched, or tethered or however you want, but they had little rips in them and stuff. And he had on this shirt that had some picture on it. And I said, if you go in and you apply for a job dressed like that, they're going to look at you right off the bat. Then when they look at your application and where it says that have you been convicted of a felon and you put down yes, they've already are going to draw a conclusion. Should it be that way? No. But the reality is they're going to. So I explained to him, I said, what you have to do is you have to change the way people look at you. And he said, well, he's like, I'm just trying to get a job. And he's like, I have an interview at McDonald's in a couple of days. And he said, I'm going to try to see if I can get a job there. And I said, okay. I said, listen, this is what I want you to do. And I said, do you want this job? He goes, yes. And I said, okay, this is what you need to do. I said, you need to go in there dressed that gives the appearance that you are looking for a job, that you want a job, and that you're capable of doing the job. And I said, so what you need to do is, and I've told this to many people before. I said, go to Goodwill. When you go to Goodwill, see if you can find a blazer or a sports jacket. I said, many times you can find a decent blazer sports jacket at Goodwill or any thrift store for about $5 or $10. I said, if you can't afford it, I said, see if you can borrow the money, or maybe you have a relative that has a jacket that you can borrow. I said, point being is go into that interview with a jacket on. I said, now, you don't have to wear dress pants. I said, but if you have some, great. If not, if you have jeans, make sure that the jeans don't have rips or tears in. I said, and find you a button-down shirt, dress shirt, or even a polo shirt. But do not go in there with a shirt that has writings and pictures and stuff on it. You want to go in with the look and with the appearance of that you are seeking employment, gainful employment, and that you are capable of doing the job. And I said, so when you go in there, I said, you want to give the impression that you can handle that job. So I told him, I said, go to Goodwill and get you a sports jacket. If you don't have a shirt, I said, a lot of times you can find a polo shirt or a dress button down shirt or dress shirt there. And I said, and they're very inexpensive there. And so well, I never really thought about that. I said, yeah. I said, I said, let me know how it turns out. So we talked for a few more minutes and he departed. The following week, I kept looking for him. I kept, I had to walk outside, look around. Never saw him at all. Then about a week or two later after that, so it'd been about 2 or 3 weeks, I was standing outside and I see him walking. He said, hey. I said, hey, man, I said, how are you doing? I was like, I was wondering, I hadn't seen you. I said, did you get that job? He said, no. He said, I went to that job and I didn't get the job. I said, are you serious? He goes, yeah. I said, I didn't get that job. He said, I got a better job. He said, they offered me a supervisor's job. He said, you were right. He said, I went in there and he said, I had a sports coat that I found at Goodwill, and I found a button-down shirt. And he said, I took it home and I cleaned it up and I went in. He said, I didn't have the dress pants, but I had on a nice pair of jeans that I have, and I had a button-down shirt on, and I had the sports coat on. And he said, and they gave me a supervisor's job. He said, I could not believe it. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. You have to let people know that you are not that same person that they see on that application. And I said, what you need to do is we have to change the mindset of how people perceive us. And it's not just if somebody, because they're a convicted felon, it could be if you have excuse me, if you have a shady work history. Let's say that you job hopped several times, or maybe you got fired from a job for showing up late or for stealing, whatever the case may be. You do not want to walk in to apply for a job and you have the appearance that you don't care. Because what that does is that is going to make people want to look into your past even more. I'm not saying to hide it. I'm not saying to ignore it. What I'm saying is that you want people to see a changed person in yourself. You don't want people to see you as a person that has a history on that paper. And I've talked to several people about these things, and I mean, I'm telling you from a employer point of view, I get people come in and when they come in and they want to apply for a job, that's the first thing I look at when somebody comes in the door is how they are dressed. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, in certain jobs that you're not going to be wearing a suit every day. Okay. And that's understandable. But the thing is that when you go in to apply for a job, you want to sell the fact that you are there with a purpose, that you are there with in the mindset of that you want to gain employment through that company, through that agency, and that not only that, but you are capable of handling the job that you're applying for, or even more. So even if you like this gentleman there, he's going to McDonald's. Okay, they start most people off as a line cook, working on the grills. But he went in with the mindset. He went in dressed like, "Hey, I'm dressed to work. I came here seeking employment. I came here to let you know that whatever job you have available, I can handle." And that's how we need to present ourselves in any time we go to apply for a job. We need to sell the fact that you are here and that you are capable of handling the position that you're applying for. And so, especially if you have a background that is going to give you questionable reference or questionable work history, you want to let them know that you are not that same person, that whatever happened in the past is in the past, that you are no longer that person. And so what I want you to understand is that we have to change how we look at how we look at going to apply for a job. Even if it's just a job as a line cook, even if it's working in a hardware store, even if is working as a janitor, when you walk in to apply for that job, you want to walk in and act like you're applying for the executive CEO position. You want to let them know that, hey, I came here to work. I am qualified to handle whatever job that you're offering. You want to sell the fact that you are not that same person that they might see on that application, because when they get into that background and they start looking and they see that you have a questionable work history or you have a criminal past, you want them to say, but that's not the same person that came in here for the interview or for the application. Well, maybe he's changed. Or they're like, he just don't seem like that type person. Whatever the case may be, you want to let people know that you are not that same person. So how can a person, especially a felon, earn respect in society? Earning respect after a felony conviction requires a combination of self-respect, accountability, meaningful contribution to the community. Respect is not given based on past actions alone, but on how one person rebuilds their life and serves others. And so we want to encourage people that, yes, you might have a shady background. You might have a criminal past history. You might have a questionable employment history, but this is not the end. You can get past this. So what you want to do is you want to focus on personal growth and rehabilitation. You want to participate in things in your community. It might be a doctor or that you know. It might be your neighbor who's an accountant. You want to build a reference background that is going to help you get these jobs. And using family members or friends, yes, it's good to put them down, but you want somebody that when they read your application, they see that this is Dr. Johnson from the Bonner Medical Center, or this is attorney Michael Smith, whatever the case may be. You want to be able to put down credible references that people can go back to look at together. You want to work on building a integrity that other people can look at and say, yes, this person has changed. And what I mean by that is it's not just in what you do, but how you do it. So as a person that's trying to build their integrity, if you tell somebody that you're going to do something, if you say that I'll be at work at on time, work starts at 8 o'clock, you want to get there at 7:50, at 7:55, no later than 7:55. If you want to get there, the earlier you get there, the better. You want to build that integrity. You want people to know that if somebody's asked you and gives you a task, that you're going to have the integrity and you're going to be a man of your word and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And this is something that we find in today's society that is so hard, is finding people of good integrity. So when you walk in and you go to apply for a job, or even if you're meeting people, you want to be a person of integrity. You want to be able to walk in, you want to be able to walk up to somebody, look them dead in the eyes, make eye contact, not stare them down, but you want to make eye contact. You want to speak clearly. You want to introduce yourself, and you want to extend your hand and give them a firm handshake. Now, I know everybody's talking about, because of COVID. Listen, guys, COVID's pretty much gone. Yes, there are still random cases around, but I'm trying to help you gain employment. If you extend that olive branch, you extend that hand out to shake and that person extends their hand out to shake back, great. If they say, well, I prefer not to shake hands, don't take offense. The key is that you made a conscious effort. You let them know that, hey, I'm a professional. I am a gentleman. So you want to make eye contact. You want to introduce yourself. You want to speak clearly, speak slowly, and you want to let them know that you are glad to meet them. This helps build your integrity, no matter if it's for a job or just meeting somebody in general. You want to always give your best effort in everything that you do. You want to work consistently and with integrity. Holding a job, paying taxes, contributing to society through your work demonstrates responsibility. Even the small tasks that are consistent, you want to do this. You want to contribute, whether it's at home, if you're staying with somebody and paying bills. You want to build that not only just credit, but you want to build that integrity of paying on time and doing things on time. You want to engage in community service. Like I said, you want to get involved in the community around you. You're not living there no more. You're not in that past anymore. You want to get past all that. You want to let people know that that's not the same person that you are now. What happened in the past is in the past. Trust me, when you start showing yourself to people and let them see the new version, the better version of you, whatever's on that application, they are not going to just go by that. Yes, they might read it and they might look at it, but they're more concerned with who are you now? How are you different from the person that has this history? Referring to yourself as a convicted felon, you want to use the term the returning citizen. You basically want to avoid labeling yourself as a recovering alcoholic or recovering drug addict or a convicted felon. You want to let people know that, hey, my name is Anthony Buntyn and I'm here to apply for the job. Or, hello, how you doing? My name is Anthony Buntyn. Pleasure meeting you. You don't want to sit there and say, hey, yeah, how you doing? My name is Anthony Buntyn and my name is Anthony Buntyn and I'm a former alcoholic. You know, th- you want people to see you in a positive light. Now, having said that, if they do ask you about your application, if they do ask you about your past history, don't deny it. Now, when I say don't deny it, I'm not saying say, oh yeah, that's me, I did it. No, what I'm saying is that acknowledge the fact that yes, I did serve time, but since then I have bettered myself by the betterment of I've gained employment. I've attended seminars on work on getting in the workforce. If it's for if you were terminated for testing positive on for drugs or something, you can say yes. I was let go of my previous employment because of a positive drug test, but since then I have gone through rehab, or since then I have sought counseling for this, and I have completed the necessary steps. You want to let them know that yes, this happened in the past, but is in the past. I'm no longer there now. And when you do that, you also want to tell them what you've done to correct those things. Now, yes, there are some people that have a criminal background, whether it was because they did something wrong or maybe the fact that they were falsely accused of a crime. Okay. Do not try to hide it or cover it up. Like we started in the beginning about the gentleman who went to apply for the job and they said, have you ever gone to prison? And he said, no, why didn't I get a job? Have you ever gone to prison? And you said no, and you have. He did go to prison. Listen, if you're guilty of the crime, you're guilty of the crime. Okay. That's not the end of the world. You just let them know, yes, I did go to prison or I did go to jail. I was arrested for possession of a drug. But since then, I have gone through rehab, or since then, I have bettered myself. And during this time, I have gone through community resources. I have, and let them know the steps that you've taken since the time that you have been in prison, or the time that you got fired. Let them know that you are no longer that same person. Whatever the case was, whoever that you were with at that time during this period, if you want to get ahead in life, you want to move on, put yourself around positive people that are doing positive things. One thing I learned when I was growing up, my grandfather used to tell me all the time, he's like, you'll never soar like an eagle if you're going to pluck on the ground with the chickens. Whoever that you hang around, you're going to end up being like that. You are going to end up back on the same thing. Okay. You're out now. Okay. You want to put yourself in the arena of people that are a step above you. Okay. And why is that? Because that gives you the desire to want to strive to be more. Okay. There are a lot of people who like to hang out with people that are less than them. Why? Because it makes them feel important. It makes them, because if they can be that popular person, if they can be that person that everybody goes to, and it makes them feel good. Yeah, that's all fine and good, but that's not going to help you get you to where you want to be. If you truly want to better your life, you truly want to get ahead in life, you truly want to let people know that you're not that same person, you need to surround yourself with positive people that are doing positive things in life. I tell my grandson all the time, look at your friends. That's where your future is. If you hang around people that aren't going nowhere and aren't doing things with their lives, you end up being in that same situation. You want to make sure that not only have you changed and that you have moved on, but you also want to help somebody else that's going through that same thing. Okay. So, and what I mean by that is, the same way I spoke to that gentleman on the streets that was trying to find work and it was with the fella, when I heard about his struggles, I wanted to help him. I wanted to give him some encouragement. I wanted to see him excel. Okay. You want to have that same type of mindset. Okay. You want to try to encourage people. You want to try to support other people. Now, thinking about supporting other people is number one, if you have a drug problem, okay, you can't help somebody else until you seek help yourself. Okay. So I'm not saying that not to help anybody. What I'm saying is, first get yourself right. Get yourself in the right frame of mind. Get yourself going in the right direction. Then what you want to do is, you want to help other people. The same way somebody gave you a chance, somebody gave you an opportunity. And this is one thing that I see a lot, and it's disheartening, is that we see people that have gotten to a certain level in life and they're not willing to help other people, or they want to make it difficult for the next person. That's selfish, and that is not a quality of a gentleman that you want. What you want to be known as that person that's willing to stand in the gap for somebody, they're willing to help somebody, that's willing to encourage somebody. Okay. Because when you do that, that's what people see. That's when people see the integrity in you. That's when people see how you are stepping up and how you are showing that you are no longer that same person that you were in the past. Okay. There's there's no one that does not have a past. Okay. There's no one that is perfect on the face of this earth. We've all done something. I was teaching a class once, and part of this class, I'm a minister, and I was ministering to a group of inmates doing a Bible study at a jail. And what I told them, I said, we were in the area. Part of this program, I not only was I ministering to them, but I was also helping them to prepare themselves for being released. Okay, and I was telling them, I said, look around. I said, you see these correction officers that are in here? And they're like, yes. I said, you know the difference between you and them? And somebody said, well, we're felons, or we're in jail. I said, no, the difference is that you got caught. I said, those correction officers, they are no different from you. We all have something in our past that we're not proud of. The only difference is that you got caught and they did. Okay. Something simple as, if you went to the bank and you take the pen that's on the counter, you fill out your deposit slip or whatever, and you leave and you walk out with that pen, you stole. Now, whether you did it intentionally or not, the fact of the matter, you still stole. Okay. So my point is this, is that there is nobody that's perfect. There is no one that has a perfect background. There is no one that has a perfect past history. So what I'm telling you is that don't let your past keep you from your destiny. Okay. Your attitude is going to dictate your altitude. Have a positive influence on yourself. Have a positive influence on those around you. Yes, it might seem difficult in the beginning, but this is not a permanent thing. This is not the end of the road. Okay. The more you apply yourself, the more you put yourself in a position of, I want to better myself. I want to grow. Okay. And the mere fact that you're here right now listening to this podcast is the first step in the right direction of becoming a gentleman. Okay. Believe it or not, when you walk into a place and the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, how you address people, and This is what the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen is all about. The Society of Ordinary Gentlemen was designed to help men go back to being gentlemen again. Okay. We are in a day and age where sweatpants, sliders, hoodies are the norm. Okay. Yes, you might see people walking around like that all the time. If you want a decent job, you are going to have a hard time getting those type of positions if you walk in wearing baggy pants with your pants sagging, if you walk in with a hoodie on, you walk in with a shirt that has pictures on it and logos and all this stuff, you are not going to get those type of jobs. Okay. Nobody is going to entrust you with those type of positions, especially to represent the company, if you come in looking like everybody else on the street. All right. With the type of work that I do, the services that I provide, you know, I have to hire people that I know are going to represent my agency, going to represent my company. I have to know that the people that I hire, that I send out, are going to be the best representation of myself in my absence. So I'm looking for somebody that can articulate well, that can communicate well, that dresses professional, because this is the person that is representing my company when they walk out that door. So if you're coming in and you got saggy pants, you got a hoodie on, you wearing sliders, and when I'm applying my investigation skills per se for determining whether you fit this category, first thing I'm looking at is how are you dressed. I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman come in one time and he came to apply for a job. Immediately, first thing I noticed, he had on sweatpants. He had on this, I don't know, can't remember if it was a hoodie or it was a jacket of some type. Can't say whether it was part of the sweatpants or whatever, but he had on like this Mr. T starter kit, had all these gold chains on. And I'm sitting there going, this man's coming to apply for a job and you're dressed like this. But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. So he filled out the application, and as I got there at his application and I brought him back into my office and I was looking it over and I started asking questions about his employment application. And every time I asked him a question, his response was, no, man, I can't swing. And I like, for example, I said, have you ever done this type of work before? No, man, I can't swing. I ain't never done nothing like that. Do you have, are you able to work any shift available? No, man, I can't swing. Everything was, no, man, I can't swing. So at the end of the interview, and by this time I had really gotten kind of irritated with the man that came to apply for a job. So at the end of the interview, he actually looked at me and said, so what's up, man? Do I get the job or not? And I looked down and said, no, man, I can't swing. Now, that might be funny, but the reality is the whole time I'm looking at this man, I'm like, how can I hire this man and entrust him to go out and represent my agency when you're dressed like this and you're talking like this? Okay. But not to mention, as because of this, as I looked at his application, I'm looking at his application and I see that he's been arrested before. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't hire him because he had a criminal record. What I'm saying is when I saw that and when I looked at the way he was dressed, and I looked at the way he was communicating, all this came into play. All this brought questions to me as to whether I felt this person was going to be able to represent this company. Okay. Another quick example. Young lady came in to apply for a job, and as minute as she walked in the door, I could smell marijuana on her. Now, we have a strict policy on drugs. There is no drugs that you cannot do drugs. You cannot be under the influence. And, but this girl showed up for a drug interview smelling like marijuana. Now, the other aspect of this is that when somebody comes to apply for a job, the first thing we do, we're going to give you a drug test. So when she came in, she said, do y'all do drug testing? Right off the bat. And I was like, yes, we do. And she's like, well, what do y'all check for? And I'm like, what do you do? And she was like, well, do I have to take one today? I said, yes, you do. We're going to go through the employment process, yes, you do have to take a drug test. Get hired and come back and take it in about 30, 40 days? No, that's part of the pre-employment is a drug screen. I said, why are you asking all this? And I'm like, do you do drugs? And she goes, "Well, what do you consider drugs?" "Anything that is not legal." And she's like, "Well, I smoke marijuana, but it's just marijuana." I'm like, "That's illegal." She's like, "Yeah, but everybody does it." It does not matter. It doesn't matter whether I agree with the laws or whether you agree with the laws. The fact of the matter is, if the state says it's illegal, if the government says it's illegal, it is illegal. I said, "You cannot do drugs." And she's like, "Well, it's just weed." And I said, "I can't hire you." And she's like, "Well, I'll stop taking it." I'm like, "I can't hire you. You come in smelling like marijuana. You've just openly admitted that you're going to test positive for drugs." I said, "In good faith, I cannot hire you." And she literally got upset about this to the point where I had to ask her to leave. And she started going off and cussing me out and all kinds. But the thing is that she came in smelling like marijuana. Her appearance, she came in, she had on these spandex type pants, and not only that, but they had like rips in them to apply for a job as a security consultant or to do security work, and you come in dressing like this. So what I want you to understand and what I want you to get from this podcast is that whether you have a blemished background, whether you have a criminal background, whatever the case may be, you can still get a good job. You can still get your life together. Okay. Just because you have a background does not mean that it's over. You can get past this. But the main thing is you want people to see you in a different light. You want people to see you for who you are now, not for the type of person that you were. Okay. Just I want you to understand this. Respect is earned by living with purpose, contributing to the community, and to constantly building and growing with integrity. And the best way to do this, and the best part about doing this, if you don't know how to do this, there are places that can help you. And one of these places is right here, the Society for Ordinary Gentlemen. If you are watching this podcast, or if you're listening to this podcast, that tells me right there that you are taking the first step. There are men in the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen that have a wealth of knowledge, not just in being a gentleman, but as far as employment, as far as job security, as far as financing, how to apply for jobs, how to go through interviews. You know, the society is here to help men become gentlemen, to bring back that nostalgic gentleman qualities that our modern day society has lost. Now, these are not men that are just gentlemen in style because they wear suits. I'm talking about these are men that live the life of a gentleman 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Okay. They are here, a part of the society, because they have the same mindset. And you can have that same mindset. If you want to grow and you want to build a relationship, a marriage or dating, if you want to build a portfolio for employment, if you want to learn how to dress like a man, you want to learn how to understand different type of fragrances, you want to know about quality of clothing and stuff, the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen is a place that you want to be. There are men all over the world that are members of the society. This is not something that's easy to get into. We don't just take anybody that walks in the door. I'm not saying that you can't get in. What I'm saying is they only want men that are serious about becoming gentlemen. And for those, there are many of you that are already gentlemen and just looking for a place to feel at home, to feel welcome. The Society of Ordinary Gentlemen is for you. So I want you to take action today. I want you to become the best version of you that you can be. Become a gentleman in today's society. The Gentleman's Forum is a podcast that is part of the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen that is dedicated to grooming and to the betterment of mankind through building gentlemen and to spreading the message and to bring other men to the society to help them grow and to better themselves. So this is your time. This is the chance for you to become the man that you know that you can be. I want to thank you for taking the time to be a part of this podcast. And if you're interested, there's several ways that you can find us. You can go to the website at www.beagentleman.org, or you can go to the school community on the internet and type in the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen. We're going to be on podcasts on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. We're on Instagram. We're on X. There are so many ways that you can find us, but the mere fact that you hear it is telling me that you're taking the first step, and I'm proud of you. And I look forward to getting to know you. I look forward to seeing you in the society. If you get a chance to go there and you want to be a part of it, drop us a line. Let us know that you have applied for the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen, and let them know that you found it on this podcast. And I look forward to seeing you in the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen. God bless you. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.